All right, let's talk about a school subject most of us probably remember, social studies. But I'm willing to bet its origin story is way more surprising and way more political than you ever thought.
To really get it, you have to start with this one single question. Because how a society answers this question changes absolutely everything about what its kids learn. Are we trying to create loyal workers, critical thinkers, patriotic citizens, or something else entirely?
See, that answer is never set in stone. It shifts and changes depending on what a country needs, what it's afraid of, and where it wants to go. And here's the really wild part. The subject of social studies was actually invented twice on two totally different continents to solve two very different problems.
So let's start with that first invention, the American one. Picture it, the early 1900s. The United States is going through this massive identity crisis. And the old way of teaching kids about citizenship, it just wasn't going to cut it anymore.
I mean, you've got this perfect storm brewing. The country is still trying to heal from the Civil War, brand new factories are changing cities overnight, and millions of immigrants are arriving with totally different cultures and languages. The country desperately needed some kind of social glue to create a shared identity and get everyone ready for this new modern world.
And you can see right here that the response was fast and deliberate. Before 1916, it was basically just history class. But then, educators realized history alone wasn't enough. So, boom, the idea of social studies gets formally introduced. And just 5 years later, it has its own national organization pushing for it. This wasn't some slow evolution, it was an urgent invention to solve a huge national problem.
So what was this new thing? Well, it was a subject built to create civic competence and encourage active participation. The point wasn't for kids to just memorize the names of presidents. The goal was to give them the actual skills they needed to be a functioning citizen in a big, complicated industrial democracy.
Okay, so that's story number one. Now let's just completely flip the script. We're going to jump to a different part of the world where education was designed to solve the exact opposite problem. In colonial Africa, the goal was never to empower citizens, it was to control subjects.
You see, the school books and the lesson plans used across colonial Africa, they were almost all imported. And this was on purpose. They were designed specifically not to encourage independent thinking or local pride, but to make sure the whole colonial system kept running smoothly with people who wouldn't rock the boat.
And this wasn't some kind of sequent agenda, it was the openly stated goal. The entire education system was built from the ground up to produce one thing: obedient and loyal subjects. The purpose was to keep things exactly as they were.
But then, of course, everything started to change. As African nations fought for and won their independence, they had a brand new problem. How do you decolonize people's minds? Well, their answer came in 1968 at a landmark meeting in Kenya that was basically a declaration of educational independence.
11. That's how many newly independent African nations sent people to Mombasa, Kenya. You had folks from Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Zambia, all of them sharing one common goal: to tear down that old colonial model of schooling and build something completely new, something for Africans by Africans.
And they didn't just sit around and talk either. They came out with a concrete three-part plan. First, they were going to develop totally new school curriculums that actually meant something to their students. Second, every country was going to create a committee to make it happen. And third, they formed the African Social Studies Program, the ASSP, to tie it all together. This was nothing short of a continent-wide revolution in education.
And here is where the philosophy gets turned completely on its head. The new goal was to create active citizens for their local communities and nations. You see the switch? It's a profound one. They went from creating passive, obedient subjects to building active, engaged citizens. This was the second invention of social studies.
So how did they do it? How did this new idea actually create a new kind of citizen? Well, it meant they had to redefine the whole point of school itself, changing not just what they taught, but how they taught it. All of it was in service of building brand new nations from the ground up.
I mean, just look at this comparison. It's a complete 180. Where the old model wanted obedient subjects, the new one demanded active citizens. Those old teacher-centered lectures that demanded loyalty, they were out. In their place came learner-centered methods that were all about fostering critical thinking.
And building this new citizen required a totally new set of tools in the curriculum. It went way beyond the old colonial history and geography. Now you had subjects like economics, sociology, and political science to help students actually understand how their new governments worked. And you had practical subjects like agriculture, which were absolutely essential for their economies. It was a curriculum designed for building a future.
So here's the big takeaway from all of this. The two stories of social studies show us that education is never, ever neutral. It's always a tool, and it's always designed to shape a certain kind of person to build a certain kind of society. Which really leaves us with one last, very important question to think about. What does the way we teach today say about the society we're trying to build right now?